Everyone. Cece here, Cece Muela with the City of Santa Rosa, and Pete with Four Leaf. We are coming live to you this morning on our very awesome 2022 Code Enforcement Network. And today we have the pleasure of bringing forth a great interview, great convo with our fellow colleague, Victor from the state of Arizona. So, Victor is a code compliance manager. Victor Martinez, I'm sorry about that, code compliance manager with Apache Junction. And in addition to that, Victor also serves as president of CELA, or the Code Enforcement League of Arizona. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Victor a couple years ago in passing through our Code Enforcement Network, and had the opportunity to meet him as well recently in Arizona at ACE. Victor comes with a wealth of knowledge, lots of great things. We're going to hear some great stories, get to know a little bit more about Victor, all the cool stuff he's done in his professional journey. So, Victor, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, let's dive in. Victor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a co-compliance manager here for the city of Apache Junction. I've been doing code compliance functions probably since I was 18. So I've been on and out for probably over 20, 25 years doing code compliance. Uh, I hold a master's in business administration and a bachelor's in business administration. I work for many jurisdictions here within the state of Arizona, to include jurisdictions such as Phoenix, such as Gilbert, Queen Creek, Nogales, and a couple of other jurisdictions. And throughout those, I learn a lot more from different jurisdictions, the way that everybody does code compliance, because everybody does it a little bit different. So I had the throughout my career, I had the opportunity to go to different states for code enforcement conference, where I uh, develop a lot of relationships with a lot of individuals, such as Pete, such as Cecilia, and other co-compliance managers, co-compliance officers throughout the United States. Um, Also, I've been the president for the Code Enforcement League of Arizona, and I've held other positions there within the association, such as second vice president, first vice president. And in the Code Enforcement League of Arizona, we offer a lot of trainings to the code enforcement officers in the state. We have a certification program known as a Certified Code Enforcement Officer One, Code Enforcement Officer Two, and then currently, after working for many years together, we are going to offer a Certified Code Enforcement Officer Three training program here in the state. And all those courses I take in conjunction with one of the community colleges here in the state, so you do get college credits for those courses. And I think since I've been the Code Enforcement League of Arizona, I've helped many code enforcement officers achieve that certification. Also, here in many municipalities I work for, such as Apache Junction, I have brought a lot of programs forward, such as a lot of abatement programs, a lot of cleanup programs, a lot of just cleaning up nuisances, doing a lot of demolitions and unsafe buildings, nuisance properties. So throughout the many years I've been in co-compliance, that's kind of what I've done, what I've been doing.
Just we always like to tell the origin story how we kind of met. So I met Victor in Colorado during one of the ACE conferences. It was my first conference. Got to meet a lot of the state presidents. Victor was one of them. I got to sneak into the state president's meeting. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I went there anyways because that's what I do. And during that meeting, I had recently just left the California Association of Code Enforcement Officers and joined the American Association. I was en route to become a board member for as their ambassador. And during that time, I just coincidentally, the president of Casio happened to be there. Her name was Carrie Simpson, and she ended up crashing the board meeting's president. We got to meet Victor. We got to meet Kelvin Bean, Greg Smith. There's a lot of great folks out there, and if you ever get a chance to go to these types of meetings, go. You will meet a lot of people, and your network just grows infinitum. It's a great thing. And I got to meet Victor, and then once I got to meet him, I just realized he goes to a lot of training. Ended up hanging out with him in Las Vegas for Educode. That was a great time. And if anybody gets a chance to go to Educode, please go to Educode. It's an awesome time. It's normally held at the New Orleans, and it's this February 28th through March 4th. We're gonna have Alan Ellis on the show in a couple weeks to discuss Educode. So that's a very good thing. Also, so now when it comes to the origin stories, now you said Victor, you said you started code enforcement around 18,
Correct,
right?
correct. I started back when I was 18. I started doing solid waste ordinance enforcement. So it was a little bit different the property maintenance, but it was solid waste. And it's funny that you mentioned a lot of this training programs because yeah, I can tell you, Pete just goes anywhere, anytime. Pete doesn't care what class it is; he just goes in there. But one of the things I can tell you is I was able to uh, get to know some good instructors in those national conferences, and I was able to bring some of those instructors here to the state level trainings that we have. Also, Pete can tell you I can be a pain sometimes because I was bugging American Association of Code Enforcement to come down to Arizona, and we were finally able to get him down here this past year, and it was very interesting. A lot of Arizona code enforcement officers were excited to have the national conference down here after so many years. So I do that. That's what I do as president of the board. Is just I'm gonna do whatever I can to get the trainings that the code enforcement officers here need. And if it means that I have to be calling ACE every week to bring it to Arizona, that's what I'll do. And Pete can tell you I do all that.
The lesson here is squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Correct, correct.
Right? So, but you know what? In all reality, Victor's one of the most, he's a very charismatic guy, and one of the things that he does bring is he brings his passion to code enforcement to Arizona. He lives his, he brings his passion of Arizona, anywhere he goes. So people know Victor as Victor from Arizona. So I think when I met him, he was at Kings Creek. So let's get back to waste management. Let's go back because I love going back and. So how did you end up getting into waste management? Because 18 is a pretty young age. So
Yeah, the interesting thing is when back at 18, I was working as a security guard at one of the high schools, right? The high school I graduated from, and I see this position open up in the city of Phoenix. And I said, you know what, sounds interesting. Let me apply for it. And I went through the whole interview process. And eventually I got hired. And let me tell you, I learned more about solid waste and trash than I ever wanted to know in my life. I mean, I was out there in the landfill doing audits of loads, doing a lot of education, a lot of community involvement. Just educating people on the importance of the recycling part of it. Doing a lot of tours at the landfill, the material recovery facilities, kind of educating people on the recycling program, and kind of just going out there, looking at areas that really were not participating in the recycling program, and just finding ways to educate them on it, to make them participate in the recycling program. And a lot of times do a little bit of enforcement, but most of our back then, because the program was barely getting started, was just more education. So that's kind of where I got my community involvement experience and my education experience, and doing a lot of presentations at the schools, a lot of community events. So that's how kind of I started in solid waste. And like I said, I think I learned more about trash than I ever wanted to know in my whole life, just in those years that I was doing solid waste.
So, Victor, if I may, Pete, so two things that you said. So you were fairly, younger, 18, getting started, security guard, then you go into solid waste, and you start learning the ins and outs. But I think that one of the things that really stands out for me is you said, community involvement, education, outreach, really getting out into the community. And I got to say, for those of us, many of us that actually have been doing the line of work that we've done for as many years, we're not always so keen or so ready to be front and center, right? To be doing the education, to be doing the community involvement, because we tend to maybe be a little introvert, or we don't know how to find a way to kind of communicate with the community. What do you think helped you prepare yourself to have that community involvement, to get out there at the beginning of having to do that community outreach? What were some things that you remember that perhaps you fine-tuned throughout the years to get you to today?
One of the things to say is practice makes you better, and I do believe that. I mean, back then, like everyone else, we're shy to do community presentations. So what I did, I started taking a lot of those classes that kind of help you speak in the community, kind of help you better yourself in doing those presentations and speaking to people. In fact, back then, I was the kind of like the liaison. I would do a lot of radio shows in Spanish. I would do a lot of TV shows in Spanish just to educate individuals. So I was kind of like the to-go person for the Spanish interviews. And I think what helped me is just taking classes. A lot of what I did too once, I remember this, is people were telling me, Victor, you talk too fast when you do your presentation, slow down. So I recorded myself and I started listening to myself. And I think a lot of that helps. And that's one of the things I can tell people, kind of record yourself, see how you're doing in those recordings. It's always good to get another person's perspective on the presentations you're doing, also to kind of help you improve yourself. There's no such thing as constructive criticism, but there's always individuals that can help make you better in doing those presentations.
Yeah, I would agree. I think those are really great tips. Is recording yourself one of them, right? Because then you get your first account of yourself, presenting how you sound. I think, Victor, that for many of us, when we start presenting, we'll tend to fidget a lot, right? Or sometimes we a lot about that, or like you're reaching for your thoughts, right? And you're absolutely 1,000%, and record yourself, because then you can hear you and you can catch yourself, right? And you start filling in those spaces with the next sentence structure that comes through. But not only that, Victor, Pete said it very well. You're very charismatic, right? So people tend to gravitate towards that. So as you're presenting, you're probably like, okay, I'm in it. I'm in my jam. I know this info. I know exactly what I'm going to say and do, because I know and I understand my work. So I think that also helps. And it's cool to know that you were a locutor, like we call it in Spanish, right? Out there, and kind of, right?
Yeah, correct. I was at the radio station doing interviews. I mean, the
Yeah.
locutores, as they call them, will interview me regarding, the solid waste ordinance, recycling, and you will get the calls coming in, people asking questions. And, that's the kind of stuff I like doing. It's just helping the community, doing a lot of, Univision. I think the Spanish network had this thing at nighttime where it was like Univision a tu lado, or you're like kind of like on your side, and you'll be on the phones there answering phone calls all night, doing like segments of interviews in the middle of those phone calls. And it was funny. A lot of times I would have people just call just to say, "Hey, Victor, I know who you are. I remember you from high school," just to say hi.
That's right.
So you became an instant celebrity, huh? In the
I'm telling you.
Spanish community, yeah.
And that's when I learned that people from Mexico do watch the news station here, because even people from Mexico were telling me, "We saw you on the news."
That's awesome.
That's really cool. So you not only were you doing community outreach in your neighborhood, but in your community, but you're like extending across the border, which is really cool. That's really neat.
Yeah, correct. That's something that you really don't think of, but it does happen. When
Yeah.
they say everybody watches the news, huh? And I literally figure out what it means when everybody watches it.
So
Right.
Vic, I'm gonna tell you a quick story. So we ended up going to a police investigation, and over some rental fraud case. And we were sitting there, and all of a sudden the news van popped up, and a bunch of cameramen popped up, like if we were gonna get kidnapped, started videotaping us. And then a guy comes up with a microphone, and I thought it was on an episode of Cheaters or something. But end of the day, it turned out to be some investigative report, and all these people that were defrauded came over and started telling their story. And we can't be on camera because our PIO would say no, you need to get clearance first. So we didn't get on camera. But later on, when I went home, my mom's like, "Hey, I saw you on the news." I just happened to be there, and they took a picture of my stop work order. So I totally get what you're saying in regards to people just randomly seeing you on the news. It's funny. So I just wanted to share that little quick story with you. So
Yeah, and that's true, because most of the time, when you come into this profession, people will say, or the direction you get is just don't get on camera. So as you're going out there and you see those cameras roll out, most of the time you're like, oh, got to turn the other way. Oh, got to go this way, right? But this is different, because this is actually providing a service. You're going out there and you're saying, hey, yeah, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what it looks like. This is what why we do what we do, and why it's so important. And I think that that's really great, because it gives perspective. And not only that, Victor, but the fact that you communicate with even the Latin community, right? That doesn't
Correct.
quite understand, hey, what is code enforcement? Why do I have those rules and regulations? I don't even understand what that even means, or why we need to do those things, because the idea always is America is a free country, right? It's a free country. You come in here, you do what you do, you live how you live, you build how you build. But the concept of having codes, regulations, things like that doesn't always set with, well, wait a minute, why do I have to, put my trash can back in after 24 hours? Or why do I have to go through design review for, painting my house or adding something to my house that might be in a historic area or whatever, right? So I think that that is really essential. That's the component of the connection that we really seek out when we're doing community involvement.
Right, I think it's really important because depending on how long people have lived here, all they know is their country, or all they know is what they grew up to know. And things change rapidly. I mean, here when I came to Apache Junction was known as a city where you can do whatever you wanted. There was no enforcement. Now all of a sudden, when I get hired, they want to go a different direction. The city manager gets this yearly um, surveys, and one of the questions in there was, okay, will you recommend a friend or a family member to live there? And 9 out of 10 were saying no, or 8 out of 10, whatever it was. So they want to change the concept. And now, you come in here as a new co-compliance manager trying to change that concept to individuals who've been used to doing things a certain way for 20, 30, 50 years. Sometimes it can get difficult. So that's where your education will come in, your community involvement comes in, and, start educating before doing the enforcement. So they can kind of know why. Why is it that you're doing the enforcement? Why is it important? And that's why I totally agree with having that community involvement, that education prior to just doing a lot of enforcement for many different individuals that probably wouldn't have known that from before.
Now, Victor, you doing this exercise in Apache Junction, did you see it like not being implemented in other cities, and maybe management just said, "Hey, go and enforce this," without any education or anything? Did you ever see that backfire, or did you ever see other successes in what you're doing right now?
Look, I've seen it before where you got not in this city but in other cities where management wants enforcement, forget the community involvement, and you can see people going up, getting upset because they're not getting the information, they're just getting enforced. They're going to your local elected officials. So I've seen it where it backfire when you don't do the education or the community involvement. That's why I think it's important to educate first before going to strictly to an enforcement aspect of the code enforcement.
And when it comes to the type of community outreach that you do for Apache Junction, what's some strategies that you did when you first, when you said, "Hey, I need to educate the public"? What is it? Did you change your website? Did you
Yeah, correct. So,
town
so
halls?
I made sure the code compliance website was up and running because it wasn't getting together with our PIO to get the information out on the social media platforms such as Facebook, such as Twitter, and all those social media platforms, letting them know, hey, listen, start with weeks, and then next month move on to inoperable vehicles, kind of get a different violations each month. Kind of let them know the importance of co-compliance. Instead of issuing notice of violations, let's issue a courtesy notice first before you start doing the actual notices. So a lot of different ways to educate people, and that's some of the ways we've done it. It's just using a lot of the social media platforms, using the co-compliance website to get people kind of to read, to learn why co-compliance is here, the codes that get enforced. So those are different things that I've done to kind of get people to know that we're doing enforcement here.
That's awesome, Victor. Now let's go back. After your stint in the solid waste area, where did you go from there? After solid waste, you transitioned over to.
So after solid waste, that's where I went over to. I was a little bit in the courts, in the municipal courts, and then after that, I went over to code compliance.
Now, when it comes to municipal courts, so in many jurisdictions we have our county courts, but in some jurisdictions you actually have your city that has its own court, and actually sometimes you have your own code enforcement division that has their own court. Now, what was the case? What's the format in say some of the jurisdictions in Arizona?
Yeah, so right here you have a couple of different processes. You have the code enforcement municipal court process, where you issue the citations and go strictly or straight to the municipal court level, where the judge decides the outcome. And then we have the administrative process, which is where the city will hire a hearing officer to hear those cases. The hearing officer doesn't work for the court, so everything that you do is going to be administratively. That's what's called administrative process. The hearing officer will hear the case, make a decision, and then any collections of fines, anything like that, is done administratively through the co-compliance department.
All right, cool, awesome. Now, let's move forward. Now, when you actually went into code enforcement, right? So, what was your first stint in code enforcement, and what made you actually look at code enforcement and say, you know what, that's what I want to do?
So the reason I started looking into code enforcement was when I was working at the municipal court, I would see code officers come in. Hey, you know me, I'm like Pete, man. I like to talk to everybody, find out what people are doing, what are they up to,
Chismoso.
right, Pete? So
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of
not
like, hey, what is their
chismoso.
job? What is it about? And I started, kind of talking to different individuals that were going into court, and kind of started learning about the job. And I said, wow, this sounds interesting. I can go out there all day and talk to people and educate, because I've always been that kind of person who loves to talk and educate people. So that's how I started getting interested in it. I started going on ride alongs to kind of see what the job was about, and I started liking what I saw. So that's when I decided to apply for code enforcement. That's how I got into it and made me kind of want to do code enforcement.
So it's kind of love at first sight, huh?
Correct, correct.
So it's funny because one of the things that I really reiterate over and over, it's like, what, your presence, your tone, your facial expressions, they all play a big factor in how you communicate with the public. When you come in with a very jovial personality, people tend to listen to you and want to work with you. But if you come in like this, people don't want to work with you. And I think that's something that I learned over years. And you being a very people person, you have a way, anybody that meets Victor has a way, like, he just loves talking to people. Like, we'll have a conversation about a conversation.
That's right.
He's just
We
one
talk
of
about
those
anything
guys,
and everything.
That's true, because like I said, I met Victor through networking, photographs, doing these type of segments, and then in passing. But when I connected with you, Victor, in Arizona, we were like, hey, how's it going, like we've known each other for years and years. And that goes to show how personality and how you kind of project out into the world, right, with everybody else, really being approachable, being able to come up to you and say, hey, how's it going, friend, how are things, how's Arizona, tell me all about it. I mean, so it's that level of comfort that you put out there that I think is so essential too.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. When I
Internally,
saw when I saw Ceci at the conference here in Arizona, I was like, "What's up?" Like I hadn't seen her for many many
yeah.
years, right? And we're
Right.
long friends. And I think I've known Ceci from maybe. I think the first time I met her was educating in Vegas about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's funny how you build a lot of relationships through
Yeah.
co-compliance, through with a lot of different individuals from different states, and it's always good because you get to learn from every one of them. A lot of times when I had questions, I can always call Pete and ask him, "Hey, Pete, what were you doing this instance?" So I can even call Ceci. I haven't done it yet, but I will.
Yeah. Yeah, for
he
sure.
will.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime. So I want to get down to some raw stuff. So we talked about you starting out. We talked about your journey. We talked about, hey, you know what? I was in court. I was observing these code officers that were kind of coming in, thought that was kind of cool, decided to apply, landed in code. So a lot of the times when we think about code enforcement, right? And sometimes we'll hear folks say, gosh, it's so much work. It's overwhelming. I can't get it right. They don't listen, blah, 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 this and that. But the truth of the matter is, and I always say this because I feel it to be true, we do what we do, and we've been in this profession long enough, right? This amount of time, because there's something about it that draws us to what we do. So, Victor, if I were to ask you, what are the highs of the code enforcement profession for you? What is it that what are those things that does it for you that continues to draw you in and pull you into the profession?
You know what? I think when you get, for example, last what was it, 2 weeks ago, I drive by a property. It was a known drug house, a lot of drug activity going on. Neighbors were just tired of it. And then you drive through the house and you see a vacant lot that's nice and clean and no more people living in there, no more drugs being used in there. That to me is satisfaction, because you know what? Now I know that the neighbors' children can go out and play, and I have to worry about a lot of the illegal activity that was occurring. I mean, I have a story. One day I was shopping at a local supermarket store down in Phoenix, and somebody comes to me and they says, "You're that code enforcement officer." And the first thing that comes to your mind is like, "Oh shoot, I'm in trouble. I probably did run them a ticket or something." And
Mhm.
and then all this person says was, "I want to thank you for taking the house down. It's a lot safer now. My children can go out and play." So I think that's the satisfaction that I get for doing my job. I think that's what makes me keep doing what I do, and that's why I'm on the state board, because I love to train people on what I know. I love to pass my experience on to people and help them succeed in their jobs. That's what they want to do. In fact, what I tell people here in the office or anybody that I know is, hey, if you ever want to be in management, I'll show you what I know. I'll help you get there and kind of train you on what I know and how I got there to kind of help you succeed in your career. And I think that's what brings me satisfaction in co-compliance. It's just not serving my external customers, but also my internal customers, such as my teams, other co-compliance officers, and educate them and give them all the information that I have.
Right, right, exactly. And and by the same token, what would you say are some of the lows of their profession? If you could pick anything, what is one of the things that, makes you think like, oh man, this is hard or this is difficult?
And I think a lot of people are going to relate to this is having elected officials that a lot of times don't like code or don't back up code. I think we have that in many municipalities that we worked in. I'm pretty sure Pete has dealt with it. I'm pretty sure Ceci has dealt with it in different municipalities or different organizations where you don't have the backing of some individuals in your organization about code compliance. And I think that's what makes it difficult sometimes. But overall, I mean, when you have 7 council members, if 4 or 5 have your backing, then you're doing a good job. But I think that what makes it difficult is just knowing that you're not going to have the backing of a lot of your team members, or a lot of individuals within the organization, because when you're out there enforcing, I think you need to have 100% of the backing. Otherwise,
Right.
it's going to be hard to do your job.
Yeah, and that is exactly correct. I can definitely relate to that. I know when I started in code enforcement many years ago, code enforcement was viewed as optional, and in a lot of jurisdictions, it still is. And with the onset of COVID-19, we found a new word, right? Essential, and everybody started using that. Are you essential? I'm essential. You're essential. Everyone's essential, right? And some jurisdictions started really realizing how essential code enforcement really was. But I feel like it doesn't necessarily have to, we don't have to have a pandemic in the world to realize the wonderful asset that a code enforcement unit has on a jurisdiction, right? There are many things that make us essential. That the fact, like you said, Victor, the fact that you can clean up a property, the fact that you can ensure that someone has a safe roof over their head, that that family with the small children are going to be able to have a place where they can sleep comfortably with heater and no leaks or no mold or no substandard conditions. The fact that even though displacement may happen, that we can perhaps assist in getting that family back into their unit or having them relocated into a better situation. But I think that when we're going before even our council members, like you said, Victor, that is big. It's key. I remember one particular city manager who I had the opportunity to present a portfolio before him. I went in there and I said, hey, this is me. This is what I do. This is my role in the city. And instead of going into, we need 10 officers, we need $10 million or whatever it may be, right? We need to beef up our budget. I went in there and I said, this is what we've done this year. This is the before, this is the after. This is our community involvement. This is the cool things that we've done. These are the notice to vacates, but these are the returns into those units. And I will never forget this. He said to me, I didn't realize how much positiveness code enforcement brings, because all I ever hear in council meetings are, I need more money. We're understaffed. But I never hear the outcome of the goodness, the good stuff, the good, right? All the cool things that we do, all the things that we do to get to that point. And I think that when we start changing that narrative a little bit, it assists us. But it goes back to, we're big on community involvement and community outreach. But that community outreach and that community involvement also needs to be internal community involvement, internal community outreach, going out there and showing them, hey, let's go on a ride along. Let me show you a day in my shoes, right? So I think that that's really essential. Yeah, that is one of the unfortunates of code enforcement, is not having.
And to broaden on that point a little bit, I will say my city manager is very good at that. I mean, every time we do projects, I send the before and after, and he's very excited to take that forward to our elected officials, to other department directors, and I think that's important because they're seeing what we're doing out there. They're kind of not only hearing it, but we're sending in the before and after, kind of how, given the history of why we had to do it, how we got there, and what the final outcome was. And our city manager is very good at doing that, passing that information along. Also one of the things I forgot to tell you, it's a story where my director and I go out to a property, and as soon as we arrive, the neighbors are clapping. They're happy. They're clapping at us because they're seeing work being done where you had a lot of activity on the property. So those are the kind of things that we pass on to the city manager, to our elected officials, so they can see the difference, so they can see how happy the community is with co-compliance at times.
Yeah, yeah, this is true. So going back to a line that I'm going to steal from you because I think it's really cool. Educate before you enforce, right? The two E's, educate before you enforce. And I think that is awesome, Victor, because it's true. Education, again, getting out in the community, letting them know who we are, why we do what we do, from the littlest littles to the adults, but also internally. Educating before we enforce. Hey, if you haven't connected with your fire department or your LE department or your city management department or planning or whomever, educate before we go enforce. Hey, this is what we can do. These are the things that we can assist you with. These are the things that we can't assist you with. However, we can provide you a resource or a number or whatever. Victor, I think that's so cool. I think the fact that you look at code enforcement with that lens is is a new way of doing code enforcement. It's an effective way of doing code enforcement because you're not so honed in on enforce, enforce, enforce. There's always something to learn about every case that we're enforcing, right? And every case that we enforce always teaches us something new. So I like that. Educate before you enforce.
Correct. And one of the things I have is I don't use no in my vocabulary. What I tell people is, even when I train my team members, when I train other code enforcement officers, is never say no to someone. Always give them what you can do for them. I mean, because we do a lot of enforcement on, accessory structures, or many other items out there, and they can come to me and says, as you're trying to say I can't have that accessory structure there, I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to say, well, you can have it, but this is how you can have it, or this is what you can do to be in compliance. I just hate the word no because it's so negative. I mean, when you tell someone no, I think you're kind of already getting that person more upset than they already are. But if you give them those options, I think that's what's going to make a big difference in doing that enforcement.
Now,
Yeah.
one of the things you touched on, Victor, was the internal camaraderie that you have to have as well. And a lot of people don't realize that code enforcement touches every division: finance with licensing, public works with encroachments, police with these drug houses. What else? I mean, there's so many. Planning, that's another component. Engineering, yeah. There's so many components that we touch on a daily basis. Yeah, it might not be ours all the time, but guess what? So we're out in the community. We're hearing about it. We're watching it. We're seeing it. We're doing it. We have to communicate with all these internal customers, like you said. It's so important because in my heart of hearts, I always believe that code enforcement is the hub of every city because we're normally people's first real interaction with the public. Because some people will never ever have to deal with city government unless they have a complaint or they need to pull a permit, or I mean, and we happen just to be that person, their first appearance. So I think the way we conduct ourselves and the way you're explaining, educating, and giving people options, I think that is the way to do code enforcement. Because if you go in with like a hammer and say, "Hey, you need to do this because I'm the code enforcement officer and I say so," it gives a bad taste of the code enforcement profession and uh, any city role that we may have.
And one of the things you just mentioned, Pete, is kind of interesting when you say we need to work with our internal customers. And one of the things we have here in Apache Junction, believe it or not, we have a quarterly meeting where we bring all the departments together. We bring departments such as public safety, the city manager's office is there, our engineering department, public works department is there, our city attorney's office is there. And we call this meeting Positively AJ, right? Positively Apache Junction. And we talk about all those properties that we work in. We talk about all those code enforcement issues going on, about all those nuisance activities that are going on out there. And that's how we coordinate with the other departments to make sure that we get a lot of those problem properties taken care of, working together, of course, working together with PD, with the city attorney's office, with the fire department, with the public works department. And that's kind of what we have here in Apache Junction. That's kind of one of the things that city manager created, is those quarterly meetings to talk about those issues. And one of the things I do got to say about my city manager is he's very pro code enforcement. That's why he does this kind of stuff, and I think it's important, and it's a good way for us to communicate with each other regarding those issues.
And one of the things, Victor, I think, and let's take it back to the association portion because that's important because as an association, we have to teach our members that there's options because I've been in many associations and you hear members saying, we don't know about this, we're not being taught this, and just like public schools, sometimes we don't get taught like finance or we don't get taught money management. In code enforcement, sometimes we lack those skills that we work in silos. We don't get taught to work together, to work with our PD, to work with our public works department. We don't get taught that stuff. So I think having that education component within our associations is also important. And you talked about the different types of certifications. Now, can you give us a little bit about how the certifications work in Arizona and things like that? Unless Ceci, you have anything before we jump into that topic.
I forget that I mute myself. No, I think let's jump into that. And the reason is, Victor, we Pete and I actually get a lot of awesome network connections from various states. And I think one of the things that we always like to highlight is how someone in a specific state can connect with code enforcement, what they can do to start their journey, get certified, go to the trainings, and do all those cool things that will get them to where they need to be. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of letting us know and sharing with everyone how one would go about getting their certification.
Yeah, so for the state of Arizona, our curriculum is approved through Central Arizona College. So you do get college credit hours for taking our academy, certification academy. We have level one, which is the introduction, for new or beginning code enforcement officers, and we go through everything from public information through legal aspects, through case documentation, how to present evidence, how to deal with people in meetings, how to officer safety. And we go through all those items, how to read blueprints, how to read legal descriptions, and go through all that kind of information. Once you go through, it's a 3 week period when you go to 2 full days a week. So you're going to be a total of 16 hours a week, right? Times 3 weeks. So, and then you get a half a credit for each class that you take. So each day will be half a credit that you're getting. And at the end of the 3 weeks, you're going to get 3 credit hours for the community college, and you're going to get your level 1 certification. Now, level 2 is kind of going through the same things again, but more advanced, more in depth. That's more for code enforcement officers who have been in the industry now maybe a year, 6 months, and kind of learn a little bit more of the advanced techniques, advanced information of code enforcement. Kind of how to do administrative warrants, how to get the criminal process, and more in depth into the actions of code enforcement. And level 3, which is the Certification Academy 3, we just got the curriculum approved through Central Arizona College, and that's gonna be more in the management perspective. For individuals who want to be leaders, for individuals who want to be managers, kind of train them on how to be good leaders, how to be good managers in code enforcement, how to deal with a lot of the public interaction, how to deal with employees, how to deal with complaints, how to deal with performance evaluations, how to deal with software programs, how to deal with a lot of the management functions, how to deal with the budget, and a lot of those items that require a co-compliance manager to be effective, or a co-compliance leader to be effective. And like I said, all those courses have credit hours through the community college, so you can use them as general electives if you're going for a degree. And also, I tell people, yeah, we do have a certification program here in the state, which you have to go through training, you have to pass tests. At the end of each class, you have to take a test to be able to get a certification, just to make sure, and you have to participate. If you're not participating and you're not passing your test, and you're not going to be able to pass a course. So that's how we encourage, code enforcement officers to get more involved, to get more trained. Because even when I teach the course, my main goal is participation, and that's how I base most of my grade is participation. How much are you participating in the class? How much are you getting out of it? Because what I tell individuals is we learn more from each other than you're going to learn from me just talking in the course. You're going to learn from experiences, from what other people have experienced throughout their career. And also, that doesn't take away from the national certification. It says me, I am a certified code enforcement officer and a certified code enforcement administrator, which I believe are good certifications to have if you're going to be in the code enforcement career for a while.
Now, Victor, how did you actually get involved with your state association? Because you are pretty involved. I met you when you were president, then you scaled out to be another position, and another position. Now you're back to president. So
how do I get involved? It's interesting. There's this lady by the name of Martha Ortiz. She works for the city of Avondale, and I met Martha Ortiz, probably by going to different classes, different trainings here in Arizona. And she just called me one day and says, "You know what, Victor? I have a secretary opening. I'm going to nominate you so you can be our secretary because the secretary quit in the middle of the term." And I'm like, okay. What Martha didn't tell me, though, is once you're in, you're in. You can't get back out. Yeah, so now I'm in. And that's kind of how I got involved. But, like I said, to me, what I really love doing is training. So, to me, it was good that she got me in the association because, I can now train individuals. I can now give my professional experiences to many court officers who are starting, to many court officers who have been around a while. And I'm like Pete. I like going out there, educating, showing people what I know about this profession. And I'm real passionate about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right. And I think that Marta probably saw that and said, "Hey, Victor, this is what you're doing. Guess what? You're stuck. You're staying in." So she knew what she was doing, and we're so glad that she did, because here you are, right, and doing all the great things for everybody else that wants to come in. So, Victor, if I were somebody brand new coming into code enforcement, right, I don't know a lick of code. I don't even know where to start. And I have all these questions. I want to get started. What would be a piece of advice that you would give to me?
What I tell people is, if you don't know anything about code enforcement, the first thing to do is come sit down with us. Come sit down with us. Come do a ride along to kind of get the what we do in code enforcement, kind of get the basics of it. You can always call any code enforcement officer, and they'll tell you what the job is. A lot of times, go into the City of Apache Junction website. I have a lot of resources there for people to look at, such as ordinances that they can look at, such as the code enforcement process, that kind of stuff. You can go into our website and look at it. You can always call me. You can always call anybody in the state board. You can always call Peter. You can always call Ceci. We're all excited to tell you about what we do in our job, kind of give you the introduction. Also, taking the courses such as, the CELA Level 1, or even going to some of the trainings that we offer here in Arizona, or going to some of the trainings that ACE offers in other states, or even the EduCode in Vegas. Those are all places where you're going to get information on what code enforcement is. And, I think it's real important that if you really want to know about this profession or join this profession, please reach out, take classes, go into the website. There's a lot of resources out there that can tell you about the job.
Yeah. Now, what about for those that are in a position of wanting to go into management or to fine tune their management skill set as a manager, Victor? What would be one of um, the or what would be a piece of advice that you would give someone when they're leading a team?
When leading a team, one piece of advice is that I would tell individuals is kind of show your code enforcement officers what you know, educate them, train them. To me, my code enforcement officers would tell you I'm not a discipline kind of guy. My code enforcement officers make a mistake, I'm gonna help them so they don't make that mistake again. I want to make sure that they learn from the mistakes, and I don't think being a micromanager or being a person who's disciplining, unless I mean there'll be instances where you do have to do it, but that's me. Also, take our level 3 CELA level 3 academy that we have, where we're going to teach you a lot about being an effective leader, being an effective manager, how to deal with different situations. I think would be a good way. Also, I know at A's they have what's known as a management track. Take that management track if you have the opportunity to do so, because there's a lot of leadership classes that are being given in there that will teach you how to be, a good leader. Also, there's a lot of different ways, or a little different resources out there that you can check out and that you can take. Also, call different managers. I mean, you can call me, you can call other managers if you have questions on how to do certain items, and I will give you my opinion on how I would do it. I'm pretty sure Pete will give you his opinion on how he would manage a situation. And I think there's a lot of us out there that you can call that will be good resources to you.
Yeah, for sure. And outside of all the code training that is super valuable when you're going through code enforcement, not just when you're starting out, but for continual education as well as fine tuning, because sometimes, depending on whether or not you're assigned a special project or you're doing something completely different, coming back in is it's almost like a relearning or a fine tuning, if you will, of your skill set. In regards to education, we always try to strive not to box ourselves in specifically just to code, because there are so many moving parts. In fact, I always say, even with our building inspectors, our plan checkers, anybody in this building industry, right? Most of the time, someone will say, "Well, I'm not code enforcement. I don't do code compliance." And I always like to remind everybody, well, hold on a second. Let's go back to Chapter 1 administration of every single model code.
All right.
And in there, it'll tell you that we are all enforcers of that code. We're all there to ensure that the code is being enforced and followed, right? Meeting the intent of the code. What other resources, Victor, are out there for those that want to also expand on their knowledge base for training?
Correct. The resources are, reading a lot of those code books. I mean, you have the international books, which includes the residential code, the building code. You can go into different zoning ordinances and read those. You can go into different code compliance websites and read the ordinances that they enforce there. Also, talking to planners. I mean, planners do a lot of. I talk to planners on a daily basis on a lot of the enforcement that I do when it comes to setbacks, when it comes to accessory structures, and a lot of different items. The zoning, a lot of times, a lot of planners will know a lot of the enforcement part of it, and they can give you a lot of information. Talk to building inspectors, building officials. Also, permit technicians can be a lot of help. Permit technicians get a lot of the applications when we red tag them, when we do unsafe buildings. They're the ones who get those applications. So they know a lot of information too. There's a lot of resources out there that you can reach out to. A lot of permit technicians organizations, a lot of building inspector organizations that can have a lot of resources for you to review.
Yeah, that's so true. So when you've been in this profession, as long as we've all been in this profession, Victor, as long as you've been in this profession, how is it that you still keep that smile on your face? How is it that you still find the passion for what you do? What is it that continues to motivate you? What advice would you give somebody when they start becoming a little stale, if you will?
Oh, what I tell people is go out there. Once you see the difference that you're making, I think that's what keeps me going, keeps me motivated. I mean, just last week I got an email from my director and my city manager saying, thank you for all the job that you're doing. Thank you for going above and beyond. And I think that's what keeps me motivated, keeps me going. I mean, National Code Enforcement Month, our city manager sets up a meeting for us and for the code enforcement team, and we go up there thinking, okay, well, what do we do now? And he has speaks up for us, for being thankful, thanking us for the job we're doing on National Code Enforcement Month. So, a lot of those things is what keeps me motivated. I mean, there are times when you're going to have individuals that don't support you, but you know what? At the end of the day, when you go home and you made a difference in one person's life by the work you did, I think that's what keeps me happy. It's the same thing for education. I mean, when I'm out there educating, if out of the class I have 10 people, 10 code enforcement officers, and one took information from me and made a difference in their job, I'm happy because that one person learned. I made a difference in someone's life, and I think that's what keeps me going and motivated, is making a difference in one person's life, whether it's external or internal.
Yeah, perfect. Right on. And I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. Finding your why, right? Reminding yourself of your why you're still in the profession and the things that you've done, and at the same time, adding a little pinch of humor and happy. And hey, we're here. We're all here to help each other out. As Victor said, please call me, talk to me, let me know how I can be of help. I'll give you the best advice that I can give you the support that I could give you. Victor, I know that there are many out there that are thankful for your mentorship. I know that I've had a great time listening to your story and just kind of listening to a little bit more of what you have to offer. And I would invite anybody that is watching the segment today to reach out to Victor. If you have any questions and you're in the state of Arizona or any other state, right? Reach out, ask him all the questions. As a president of SELA, as a code manager, as someone who came up in this profession, at different stages of what it is that you want to follow as far as your professional journey. You want to hear a little bit more from him and have that candid conversation, please reach out to him. I'm sure he would be more than happy to have that conversation with you as well.
Yeah, correct. Anytime. I'm here to share my experiences, my trainings, my education, whatever I can to help somebody succeed.
Now, Victor, is your information on the SELA website?
Correct.
Okay, so I put the SELA website here, so if anybody wants to
Yeah,
go
my
to
information is still a website, and also at ApacheJunctionAZ.gov. My information is there. You'll see a picture of Victor there, and you can just hit send email, or it has my contact information also.
do you answer within the next 24 to 48 hours? So no, I'm just messing. But Victor, in getting to know you all these years, I don't know if this is true, but me, the way I enforce, at the end of my enforcement action, I've gotten thank yous from the public, for me helping them solve their issues or help them comply, or I've been invited to quinceañeras or a barbecue. It's such a great feeling when you're able to do your job, where the community really thanks you, personally, So I
Yeah,
think,
correct. I've actually made
yeah.
friends through this code enforcement journey that I've been in, and I make very good friends through it. And there's a lot of things that can happen being here in the code enforcement industry.
No, we appreciate you, Rick, and we appreciate the style of code enforcement. It's a fresh, you know, fresh air, and just listening to other code enforcement officers, sometimes we get stuck in that rut where, oh, I don't like my job, oh, the community hates us, and there's to look at somebody like yourself who can go to work every day and just still enjoy their job, and knowing that you're making a difference in the community, because that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps Cecilia going, and I know there's a lot of us in this, that coming on this program and listen, or retired. That's their same experience.
Yeah, correct.
Yep. So in the words of Victor, educate before you enforce, right? Make sure that you're always reminding yourself of your wins, even the small ones. The small differences that you make in your community have the most impact most of the time, right? And in addition to that, continue chasing your goals. Call, network, build, reach out for that mentorship. And just always make sure that you stay focused. Anything is possible. Possibilities are endless.
And continue to grow professionally. Take a lot of those continuing education courses through ACE, through CELA, through your state organization, through ICC. I mean, I think that's very good that you keep yourself updated with those codes and just keep taking those courses, keep growing.
Right on.
Awesome. With that, we're going to be ending our interview, but thank you very much for coming on today. We love having folks like yourself come on the National Code Enforcement Network, where we bring the best of the best. And I love, we love interviewing you guys because you bring that fresh air into our profession. So thank you, Victor. With that, everybody, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Victor, we look forward to seeing you at EduCode, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll try, but definitely I'll be at ACE.
There you go.
Atlanta, 2022.
That's right.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.